oh boy, where do I start today? It has been very quiet and I was nearly in despair, not knowing what my next video was going to be about. But after checking my email and DMs, I truly do not know where to start because there is just so much. I was going to talk to you about peace ad Toro today, but I'm going to postpone that for a day or so because there are more to talk about and, in my opinion, far more important. I was asked a very important question and usually I would have given very little thought to it and just answered it one way or the other. But the person whom it came from is educated in different schools, an academic, a medical professional, not someone who would ask such a question just for the sake of asking it or just to make conversation. And honestly, I felt the need to take a moment to think about my answer because I felt instinctively that there was a reason behind the question. The question was whether I thought William would be the one to fix the monarchy and give England back its freedom. Now, this was not the question verbatim, but good enough. Now, you do not have to wait 48 hours for my answer like my friend did. My answer was indeed no. No, regardless of the fact that I think William would be a good king, and no, regardless of the fact that I really do like William, really and honestly like him, and yet my answer is still no. I do not think William will be the one who will restore the monarchy and give England back its freedom, because I think that the damage already done to the monarchy by Charles, Andrew, Harry and Meghan will end up being too great to be fixed by one man, and the damage to the country done by the likes of illegal immigration and other strange ideologies and evil strategies implemented by the current government will take generations to repair, if ever. So no, William as one man of flesh and blood will not be able to repair what is being broken under the reign of and the approval of his father. As for William himself, I think he is the type of person who would have made a relative success of whatever he chose to do, had he not been a prince of the realm, because he has this quiet, confident strength and presence. But I think William would have been happier being a helicopter pilot and paramedic than he would have been, or he would be, as a prince and a future king. That is just the overall impression one gets from him, more the action man than the diplomat, although his charm does make him a good, or shall I say, not a bad diplomat either. I sometimes look at William and think that the only reason why he is fighting so hard to maintain his position is out of pure stubbornness, purely because he does not want his brother to get any closer to the throne. Okay, I mean, yes, I think he is also very well aware that it would be an absolute disaster and a sure end to the monarchy. So he is indeed more than willing to try his best for his country. So I wouldn't say unwilling, just not heart and soul into it all, into the whole entire old-fashioned and traditional idea of monarchy. So that is my synopsis and why I do not think William will be able to bring the monarchy back to what it was, to do so, one would have needed an almost obsessive drive to do so, a love for tradition and monarchy, which William, I don't think he really has. And I certainly do not blame him, not one little bit. I think if William is ever to put to the test his wife and children or the crown, he would wave the crown goodbye. I think if the same choice would be put to Harry, to either be king or lose his family, he would wave his family goodbye. Well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe not, but I certainly at the moment think so. Now, lay out the damage done to the monarchy, and I'm not even going to take it as in depth as one could, but it would take a week or a month to explain all the nuances of all the damage which had been done over the last 3, maybe even 5 years. It really does not matter where we start, so we can just as well start with the Yorks. Andrew's relationship with Epstein, I think, did start innocently enough, with business discussions and Epstein fishing for clients as much as Andrew wanted to learn and absorb. I thoroughly do believe that. I believe that Andrew's love life was quite separate from his relationship with Epstein until it became a part of the friendship. We know that Andrew did not have too many relationships and romances before his marriage to Sarah, not half as many as his brother Charles, likely because he was not under the same pressure to get married as Charles was. It is said that Andrew and Diana got along well, and that the Queen once remarked that Diana and Andrew would be more suitable as a couple than Diana and Charles. However, next thing we knew, Andrew was engaged and then married to Fergie. And I remember looking at them on the day of their wedding and thinking, those two are mates, they are buddies, they are not in love or ideal lovers. Andrew was refined, an officer and a gentleman. Well, at least in appearance and mannerisms, and Fergie was a bull in a china shop. They separated in 1992 and divorced in 1996. There's a big question mark over when and how Andrew and Epstein met. Andrew admitted to meeting Epstein in 1999, but there are others who are saying that it was indeed earlier. I do not think that in the bigger picture it really matters much, because it is my understanding that Andrew dated and saw and used a number of women and girls, from socialites to models to pay-for-play girls, between and maybe even before 1992, and whenever he met Jeffrey Epstein, obviously. Although I personally do not pay much heed to stories by ex-officers working at the palace, because they are very clearly out to make a buck off the back of the Andrew scandal. However, if we should believe them, then Andrew had ladies delivered to the palace regularly. So it is my opinion that eventually there would have been some kind of scandal with or without Epstein. But it is what it is. What is done, and photographs and email are still coming out. The latest being, I think, a bunch of 4 photographs of Andrew on all fours next to a young woman lying on the floor. Now, her face is covered, but she seems to be okay. Her color is good, and in one photograph, she does lift her hand, a well manicured hand, and Andrew lays a hand on her rib area. Now, I personally do not perceive stress or anger or any such thing in the picture. I cannot even begin to guess what is happening in the picture. They are both fully dressed, so it does not look sexual at all. Among the new releases are, however, also a number of email between Andrew and Epstein and Sarah and Epstein. So there is just no argument about their ongoing involvement with Epstein after his conviction. It is there in the open now. I have to add, for legal reasons and based on what my own eyes tell me and not what others are saying, that very few of these email really 100% point to anything criminal. Sarah's, to be honest, just sound grifty. "Oh, you are the brother I never had." And then she follows it up with plans for this deal and that deal. And also, something else I got from these email was that Epstein could not spell. Together, though, it does not look good. And the worst thing is that there is no way under heaven or hell or on earth that the royal family did not and could not know about Andrew's behavior or then his relationship with Epstein. I mean, it's just not possible because he did not hide it at all. If so many guards saw these women coming and going, the Queen had to know, and eventually Charles had to know. Security reports are shared with the royals regularly, and the monarch, her or himself, could even receive security briefings daily if deemed necessary. Thus, if true that he received numerous ladies without appointment at Buckingham Palace, then the Queen or Charles would have been briefed about it. So no matter what, they knew that Andrew's conduct was not, shall we say, too savoury. Either one of them, if not both, must have been briefed on his actions, particularly if he was condescending and rude to guards, as they say he was, particularly if he did not listen to security advice, etc. So, no matter which way one looks at it, the Queen and Charles, at least, may not have known it all, but they must have known some of it. Charles was warned against Savile, and he chose to ignore it. I'm 100% sure Andrew was warned against Epstein, and he chose to ignore it. So the very first big chunk of damage to the royal family is indeed the fact that we are forced to question their moral compass. Andrew's shenanigans with Epstein highlighted that and again also placed a renewed spotlight on Charles's moral compass. Numerous affairs, including with his current wife, and his friendship with Savile, Ball and Van der Post. It even brought to the fore certain relationships Prince Philip had with the opposite sex. Not good at all for the current royal family. Once you question the moral compass of your king, your monarch, your sovereign, then inevitably you will eventually start to question anything and everything else. It is said that Charles and Andrew had made a deal of sorts and that the deal included Andrew's daughters being protected. But a deal between Charles and Andrew is worth nothing, because it does not include the entire Commonwealth and every other person ever in their orbit. And with their parents' behavior in the spotlight, it is inevitable that their behavior will come under scrutiny. Unfortunately, they are no longer children but adults, and it does not help to have a mother who, although having a good heart, is rather brash and uncouth, and who is so brash that she actually writes in an email that she's waiting for Eugenie to return from a shagging weekend. In 2010, on the 21st of March 2010, the date of the email, Eugenie was only 3 days away from turning 20. So nothing illegal about shagging, but I sincerely doubt I or my mother or one of my daughters as a mother would write an email like that, even if and when we knew our daughters were shagging someone. Amid all these woes, no one is spared. And so stories of Beatrice getting blind drunk are also now surfacing. There is no distinction between youthful shenanigans and truly bad behavior being made. There is no empathy, although it appears now that Eugenie and Beatrice are not the balanced young women we thought they were, but instead, or maybe, two broken souls. So it is safe to say that regardless of whatever deal Charles and Andrew cut, Eugenie and Beatrice are not going to escape the fallout. So take one step back and put yourself in William's shoes. The only support William can rely on as things stand at the moment will be his wife and children, and maybe or hopefully Edward and Sophie for a while. And that, my dears, is indeed a sad state of affairs, and not something William can do anything about. It is out of his hands. Okay, stepping from Andrew and the Yorks to the current king and father of the future king. In his private and semi-private life, the man was an absolute disaster. Harry and a ghostwriter wrote a book in which Harry slagged his father. However, Charles and Dimbleby wrote a book in which he slagged his parents. Meghan Markle would do anything to be front and center and get all the attention. Charles hated his first wife for drawing the attention away from him. Now, as a king, he's made 2 documentaries, one for Amazon Prime and one for Netflix, all about, guess what? Himself and his interest in nature and global warming and climate change and harmony and blah, blah, bloody blah. Not a word about his country and its people's struggles. Heck no. All about him. Meghan Markle can indeed book herself lessons in successful narcissism. Now we moan about Sarah Ferguson writing books and using her title Duchess of York. Well, Bonnie Prince Charlie had 22 books, maybe even more, published using his HRH and princely title. Now educate me as to where the difference lies. Why was it okay for Charles to do all of this? Write books, make documentaries using his standing in life and his titles, but it's not okay for anyone else. The cash for honours scandals, the affairs, the death at Closters, and on and on and on it went. Not once did Charles acknowledge responsibility or apologized for any of his misdeeds or behaviors. We used to make excuses for him. Oh, he did the best he could. No, he didn't. He was a shit father. Well, more performing monkey than a father. He appeared attentive and diligent in front of the cameras, but in reality he spent more time with his mistress than with his children. Even during school breaks, the boys will be left to mind each other or to take off with their security in minders. Now, as a king, what has he done? What has he done other than turn his back on his people? Remember March 2025 when Charles proudly allowed Ramadan iftar to be held inside St. George's Hall at Windsor Castle? In his Easter message, Charles referenced Islam as a faith that shares the values of compassion, that, and I quote, the deep human instinct of caring for others is echoed in Islam. Nobody seemed to have bothered to tell him that Islam does not celebrate Easter. Since Charles had to give up the Duchy of Cornwall, the true state of affairs and the rubbish he left behind started to leak out. But mainstream media and the Royal Rota are obviously not touching it. But I will. Unemployment, homelessness, and the degradation of some of the most beautiful and quaint little and not so little towns is heartbreaking and so sad to see. Yet to date, William has received only criticism and anger from his father for making homelessness his priority and using duchy land to do so. And when that did not work and William went public with it, Charles had the gall to pass it off as his idea, his project. Am I right, Angela Rayner? And then there is the Harry issue. Yes, Harry can lie through his teeth, and Meghan can't tell the truth. Meghan can't buy toilet paper and tell the truth about it. Her two-ply is always gold infused. Regardless of how ridiculous Meghan's lies are, there are always a soul or two believing the story she spins. So there is your damage, because to date Meghan has not stopped throwing shade at the monarchy. 8 years of nuclear bombs being dropped on the crown. And although most of these bombs were fake and nothing more than stink bombs, the stench still lingers and will linger until King Charles takes his finger out of his you-know-what and does something about it. The holes and cracks where the bombs landed will take many years to repair, if repairable at all. Harry will never stop trying to bring his brother down. He was born like that. He inherited the trait from his father. Harry always wanted all the attention. Harry wanted to be number one, top dog, just like his father. Harry will continue to try and kick his brother out of the castle or the palace and into a mud pit or gutter, or even better for Harry, into his grave. Will it matter whether Harry still has his titles or not? No, it won't, because Harry will continue with his drug-fueled imaginary war until he lays his head down one day. Now, can William fix it all? No, he can't. He cannot return to life those who lost it, like his mother. He can't return the lives of all those who lost their jobs and their livelihood through the selfish actions of Charles. I mean, go look up Professor Edzard Ernst. And he wasn't the first or the only one. It will take William years to repair the damage to the Duchy of Cornwall. By the way, I see the government is going to outlaw leaseholds. I'm sure Charles is not going to get exemption this time, and William will not fight it because he had already started to cancel leaseholds in the duchy. And there isn't much William can do without the approval of the duchy board, his advisors, the government, etc., etc. And that process can stall time endlessly. William will have, say, 30 years in a very hostile political climate to try and fix what his father, his uncle, and his brother broke. And as much as I care for Diana's son, I'm really sad to say that I do not think he can do it all. Not because I think he is weak, but because the odds are totally against him. Okay, my dears, that is my opinion for now. I'll be back later or tomorrow, so until then, please take good care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye.